So let's see if we can find some more people who have a different perspective on agentic AI. I know Chris. Chris is really a thought leader in the domain for retail, for CPG, for manufacturing, and especially with regard to pricing and inventory optimization. Chris, hi.
Pleasure to meet you.
Some great speech from Daniel about agentic AI, but you are in a specific domain. On one end for price optimization, for inventory optimization, especially in retail, in CPG, in manufacturing, work for large enterprises. So I would like to have an understanding in where are we now today with agentic AI. Daniel explained 5 steps. 2 of them were already there now, but how is the CPG market? How's the retail market? How are you working with price optimization today in this roadmap to agentic?
Yeah, sure. I think it's an exciting time in the technology space. We've gone from several years ago, deterministic analytics, business insight, through to predictive and probabilistic capabilities with machine learning, through to the huge hype created with ChatGPT hitting the market a couple of years ago, generative LLMs, and now agentic, which can hopefully pull all of those pre-existing technologies together to unleash a new era of business performance and uplift. So I think where we're at today, we have machine learning optimization that's being leveraged by the likes of Nike, Heidelberg Materials in retail manufacturing to drive huge margin uplifts, productivity uplifts, conversion rate uplifts using sophisticated machine learning tools. And the future, I think, will be starting to use multi-agent systems that can add additional layers of sophistication to how we think about pricing. So today, we can simulate millions of different price points and the conversion rate probability for a complex basket of goods in manufacturing settings. In the future, in the near future, hopefully, leveraging some of what Daniel showcased with Agent Builder, I think we'll be able to start to overlay into those workflows a buying agent and a selling agent interacting and simulating the negotiation that would be had by the human seller and the human buyer in the near future. And that will add an extra layer of sophistication and capability to those pricing engines that can then enable slightly higher margin uplifts, slightly higher productivity uplifts. So I think it's really exciting.
And you're working mainly then with structured information. So is there any space where you use LLMs, which are part for the agentic AI domain? Do you use LLMs at all, or is not required? And in how do you use them?
So we use them in a couple of specific ways currently. We leverage retrieval augmented generation as part of a product we have on our AI platform called CoDriver. And CoDriver can do a number of different things. So let's use the sales example again and the pricing optimization example. If a seller has had a price range given to them by an AI tool, often they will be slightly cynical and perhaps dubious around the price range that's being given to them to then go and negotiate with the customer. What LLMs can do is provide a level of explainability around how the prediction was arrived at by indexing all of the predictive outputs that have been created, and then in natural language playing back to the seller how we've actually arrived at that prediction, which if we go back a couple of years, it would have been a seller looking at a dashboard and a graph and trying to unpick mathematically how we've arrived at a price, and you end up in a slightly black box situation. So I see LLMs in that case illuminating the black box of predictive engines, which is amazing. I think other use cases starting to use LLMs as part of the communication with the end customer as well. So starting to curate specific types of communication when you have a price that you want to return to a customer. What's the most effective way to then convey that information to elevate the probability of converting that business?
So it's mainly supportive content to facilitate the communication and facilitate that part. And on the other hand, for example, you have an autonomous part in agentic. Where are we now, and what are the steps to go more autonomous, and which parts are autonomous? Because Daniel mentioned as well, there's 1 billion use cases, and every use case can be divided in very small steps. So autonomous can be one small step autonomous versus end-to-end autonomous, and there's of course a big difference.
I'm personally excited about autonomous multi-agent systems within supply chains or within commercial functions. I think the likes of Agent Builder and getting that tool into the hands of RPA devs and data scientists and data engineers and starting to experiment with how can we build these sophisticated autonomous systems. And to Daniel's point, taking bite-sized specialist parts of functions and experimenting and then scaling that out into more sophisticated systems with multiple agents that are highly specialized interacting with each other. I think over the next year it's going to be hugely exciting. I can't give a perfect prediction on when we're going to see fully autonomous, supply planning multi-agent systems or pricing agentic systems. But I think we're not too far away, and the innovations that are being released by the likes of UiPath, incorporating with the likes of what Peak does on the machine learning optimization side, I think we can get there within the next 12 months or so.
And one of the key aspects is also real-time data, especially with pricing. Pricing can change all the time.
Sure.
So is this already applied where you inject real-time data, use it in your calculations probably? So I expect that aspect is already covered. Can you explain a little bit more and give some insight?
So there's a few different dimensions with real-time data. There's features that you can incorporate around competitor pricing, which is obviously changing continuously and a great input into a pricing model. There's things like in the manufacturing industry, so Heidelberg Materials, one of our customers, the proximity of the manufacturing facility to where the customer requires their building materials to be delivered is another dynamic situation where other kind of production plants and manufacturing facilities have specific output that they're creating, and in real time that mix of products that is being produced and then sold by other salespeople will be adjusting continuously. That's a key feature into a pricing model, because obviously based on the quantity of material you have available to sell will impact on the price that you're ultimately going to sell it for. So those different real-time dimensions are critical to really sophisticated pricing engines and pricing solutions. And again, I think UiPath, with being the global leader in RPA and their ability to capture data and feed it into other platforms and other systems very quickly is a great kind of solution for that.
And will be mainly business driven, so if there's the use case, you put that part in as a new type of case, new type of automation.
Yeah.
One last point is many people are a little bit scared of taking their job.
Sure.
How do you see this? Because there's so many steps in, let's say, either a pricing optimization or an inventory optimization. Yeah. Is it taking jobs, or is it supporting the people that are working in this domain?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think I sit on the side of optimism. I have a great belief in the innate creativity of human beings who knew we were going to have prompt engineering jobs a few years ago, who knew we'd have social media management jobs 10 years ago, so we have an incredible capacity to create new, interesting, creative, strategic roles for ourselves. So I sit on the side of optimism. I think agents will inevitably replace some aspects of certain tasks and roles, but I'm a big believer that people will then be able to focus on the more creative, strategic elements of roles. And we've seen that even when we're deploying machine learning optimization solutions into supply chain functions, the liberation of key people within those functions to then focus on things that are innately creative and strategic and human shaped, that require critical thought. And I'm a believer that we'll be able to do more of that work and less of the mundane administrative work that agents hopefully will be able to solve for us.
I'm on the same path, but I see it happening indeed, where there's so many different steps that can be improved, augmented, get better business results while keeping the job, but the job will change, and people need to change, that's for sure, because some parts will be taken over and supported.
I think we all owe it to ourselves as technologists, UiPath, Peak, SAP, everyone.
You do it already every day, basically.
Educating and helping people understand. AI is still an umbrella term that is thrown about quite loosely at times. What is machine learning versus generative versus agentic? Helping people understand that will be the first step of the path to helping people understand where is their role and how can they best perform in a world in which increasingly algorithmic automation is throughout our businesses. So yeah, I think we can all do our part in helping educate and upskilling everyone around us.
Chris, thanks a lot.
Yeah, real pleasure.
Great insights. I'm going to continue my booth tour, but I really love the story and how you defined the path from where you are now to fully agentic.
Great, thank you. Really great to meet you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.